Tonight, Amazon muscle in on Marvel's territory at a time when the ground is shakier than Michael J. Fox. Welcome to a bubblegum-coloured Macclevoid at the movies. Yeah, hello there, I'm Dr. Macclevoid. That's not my real name. Now, Masters of the Universe, you remember it, don't you? He-Man, Skeletor, Castle Grayskull, Snake Mountain, there was a cartoon, little bit of simplistic moralising at the end. It was a cartoon that entertained you and taught you things at the same time, in a way that shows like this never will. And we've already had a movie version of it in 1987, courtesy of Canon Films, who typically chasing movie trends that were already past their sell-by date, patterned their version on Star Wars, right down to the score, design, everything in fact that set the box office success. So now it's happening again. Amazon Pictures, as they now are, have remade Masters of the Universe. I say remade it, they've made another version of it, although it does allude to the canon version in one scene. And what can I tell you? Can I tell you anything? Yeah, I can tell you something. It's fun, it's frivolous, and it's completely weightless. It's a little bit like you. Yes, I can elaborate. Okay, so, look. This version of Masters of the Universe, directed by Travis Knight, whoever he may be, will appeal to fans of the Carry On movies and musical theatre. And I could leave it there. But it is a very bright, day-glow, bubblegum-coloured camp experience. And it's full of mirth and levity and winking at the audience. And what it isn't is a movie of heft or consequence. Sorry to disappoint you. But perhaps you weren't really expecting any of that, were you? And this is a movie that is so Marvel in nature that I suppose the MCU could sue. People who made Thor, Love and Thunder will wonder what they did right to be copied so soon. The critics certainly won't be able to tell them. It is tempting to ask, what were they thinking? Well, what they were thinking was, how do we launch a new toy line for children while charming and fluffing the memories of today's late 40s and 50-somethings, the kids of the 80s who loved He-Man. That's what they're thinking. Can we do it? Can we create new fans and sell new toys? And can we charm the parents of those kids into buying them? It's a balancing act, isn't it? Is it achieved? Well, I suppose on one level it is achieved. It's achieved by steeping the movie in 80s nostalgia. It has a certain earnest simplicity, which is very redolent of the 1980s. The colour scheme is very cartoon-like, very reminiscent of something that you might have seen, during going live on a Saturday morning in 1987. There's Queen on the soundtrack, shamelessly ripped from the Highlander soundtrack, which of course is a movie that's referenced. Do you remember Highlander? Sword and sorcery, you get it? It's meta in it. It's self-referential. It's terribly knowing and tongue-in-cheek. You could say that refreshingly, the characters have no grounded real-world psychological motivation, just as they wouldn't in days of yore, in cartoons of yore. There's good and there's evil. The movie openly addresses this point in its knowing, winking at the audience kind of way, He-Man says to Teela, why does Skeletor do these things? Why is he so evil? And she says, well, he's a bad man. And he says, well, there must be more to it than that. And she says, well, no, he's got, the skeleton for a face. And that's all you need to know. Skeletor himself says, hey, I'm the villain. That's all you need to know about me. And you're the hero, and that's all we need to know about you. And that, kids, is as deep as this movie gets. Well, almost. There is a sort of self-aware critique of masculinity here. Necessary, the suits and the AI controlling their decision-making would have us believe, because, of course, He-Man was an unreconstructed look at gender, wasn't it? Men were men, women were women. Monsters were monsters. You didn't need to think about it any more carefully than that. Everything was coded in a very simple way. So today, the thinking is that won't do. We need to go deeper than that. We need to address that. Little boys need to be told that there's more to life than brute strength and force, as fun and exciting as that is. So what is the message? What is the finger wagging? Well, they say, well, empathy is important, kindness is important, being yourself is important. Shouldn't don't let daddy tell you how to be a man. Being a man comes from within, but men step up, men look after the people they love, etc., etc. This is pretty simple stuff, pretty old-fashioned stuff. It never veers into anything too woke, He-Man, when he's on Earth as an HR man looking for his sword, has pronouns on his nameplate in his office, but that's just them being silly. It's a joke at wokery's expense, you see. But the film itself isn't too woke. It falls short of wokery. And above all else, it concludes that some people need to be put down with force. And we all know who we're talking about, don't we? Amazon executives. Look, 10-year-olds will love it. The 10-year-old in me loved it. If I'd seen this movie in 1986, 1985, I think it would have been my new favourite film of the week. I might not have remembered it a week later, but the week I did remember it, I'd have had a roaring time. I'd have got it out frequently on home video, I think. Just as I did with the 1987 Masters of the Universe, but we'll come back to that momentarily. There are lots of little acknowledgements too that really this is a movie for children, and that if you look at it from a child's perspective, as you're strong-armed into doing by the script, then you'll have a good old time. So, for example, all the characters in the movie that you remember, Mechanic, Ram Man, Trapjaw, the conceit in the movie is that they're the names that the boy Adam gave to these characters in his head. They're not their real names. That's what he called them based on their, obvious, conspicuous characteristics. And that kind of works, I suppose. Yeah, it is part of that modern trend that something has to have a real world explanation. Something can't just be something for the sake of being entertaining or fun. But it does help to put you in that mindset, the mindset that you need to be in order to enjoy the film. Everything's played for yuks. He-Man is a sort of combination of Flash Gordon and Alex Winter from Bill and Ted. What is Jared Leto doing in this movie as Skeletor? Well, he's not hamming it up in a grandiose Shakespearean way like Frank Langella did. He goes for pure camp. I'm not kidding. If Kenneth Williams had voiced this character and performed it with the help of motion capture, it could not have been any more sort of aristocratically English and silly than it is. And some will say, you know, casting Jared Leto causes a risk because traditionally he's box office poison. I don't imagine anybody here will not enjoy his performance, but some might say that it somewhat takes the edge off the enterprise. I mean, after all, Frank Langella was so scenery chewing that he not only stole the movie, but he was also quite a frightening character for young children. No, there are no characters in this movie that are going to scare kids. They'll be too busy guffawing to be scared. So that's a risk, isn't it? Having a movie that's completely edgeless, where, you know, the only deaths are sort of harmless vaporizations or droids getting blown up and things like that. Things that, you know, no 8-year-old is going to give a sod about. For adults, well, there's stuff for you too. There's a Dolph Lundgren cameo. Good Journey. There's Queen. There's Brian May on guitar. There's those professional parodists, The Darkness. They've contributed a song, and nothing says we're not taking this seriously more than having The Darkness on the soundtrack. There's a celebration of fan culture. Is it enough? I don't know. I don't think so. Not quite enough. Any joke that you can think of that you might have put in this thing, tongue-in-cheek, the filmmakers are ahead of you, including the moral at the end. That's not a spoiler. Not really. Not have you seen He-Man. In fact, the filmmakers are counting on you being offended if you weren't anticipating this and they hadn't put it in. Perhaps so. Perhaps it's a little bit too clever for its own good. You'll never see a movie that's more self-aware than Masters of the Universe. I don't think ever. It knows what decade the cartoon was made in. It knows the cartoon exists. It knows that the canon movie exists. It knows the movies that informed the period exist. It knows what fandom's memories look like. It knows what kids like nowadays, and it attempts to sort of fuse the two things together. Even the studio intervenes to save Prince Adam. An Amazon truck hits the Beastman. I mean, you can't get more sort of, you know, wearingly meta than that, can you? But here's the problem, and I hope you're now listening. In order for a movie to work, we have to be in some way emotionally invested in it, don't we? Even if it's ridiculous on its face. Even if it's set on the planet as like, yeah, and it features an alien civilization and there's nothing of our lives in it. If the characters exhibit a certain humanity, if there's real emotion, real feeling, and therefore a sense of real stakes, we can get involved, and we do, and we say, that took me to another place, but also I could buy into it. I was there. I was pulled in. Now, you're not going to like me saying this, but the 1987 canon movie did that. Yeah, it did. The characters felt real things. Courtney Cox cried for her dead parents. You know, Robert Duncan McNeil blubbered when his girlfriend's leg had been zapped by Skeletor and she was poisoned and he thought she was going to die. Frank Langella was angry and he was angry and arrogant and narcissistic at the same time. All of that stuff. When the characters professed to be scared, they looked scared, they sounded scared. You can buy into it. You know? You were there. You felt something. It's almost like watching a real movie. What do you feel during this Masters of the Universe? Wry amusement, sure. A certain warmth, certain lightness of spirit. It's a warm bath of a movie. But is that enough? Is that enough to justify taking 2 hours and 20 minutes of your precious life away? Or not so precious, depending on what you do with it? I would say not. So, in conclusion, one would have to say that this is a highly mechanical piece of entertainment, right down to the 2 inserted mid-credit scenes and the post-credit scene. It's so mechanical you can hear the gears. So that's it. That's all there is to say, really. It doesn't really have the power, because there is no power in yucking. For that you need real, genuine human feeling. At least some of the time. It can't just be jokes. It can't just be yucks. It can't just be side eyes to the camera. I can get away with that, but a movie can't. Till next time, I'm Dr. Macclevoid. It's not my real name. Good journey.